The eagerness to grave dance on unpopular games has become a bad habit, says PC Gamer. I vehemently disagree. I disagree on a level and with an intensity that only a dog at a cat hotel can ever truly understand, or a vegan at the world's largest all-meat barbecue convention, frankly. And may I just hasten to add as well that we live in interesting times, do we not, when the consumer magazine, or well, website at this point, PC Gamer, is writing articles going, "Oh, those damned video gamers, they're so angry at our masters' video games. These poor companies just wanted to make their $40 video games and the customers are upset. Oh, terrible." Yes, it's absolutely awful, but hey, well, here's the thing. Where else are we gonna get our kicks these days? Concord was surely not going to provide us with any laughs or giggles or fun, so we take our entertainment where we can. And if there just happens to be a pound of flesh from Sony, well, all the better, frankly. Concord's low turnout has led to the usual jubilation of the prospect of seeing a big game fail. Oh, not just fail. As I said previously, this is not merely a flop or a failure. This is something else. This is the black hole of video gaming. This is a brand new current year ET that is going to rock the entire market. And the best part is, PC Gamer simply doesn't understand why, which we'll get to in a little bit. Sony's hero shooter Concord launched last week, and its Steam concurrent haven't yet topped 1,000. The dramatically low turnout has already earned it the title of the biggest flop of the year on social media, the biggest flop of damn near any year, really. And if you caught any of the discussions on Reddit, TikTok, and other platforms over the weekend, you mostly saw people gloating, posting screenshots of SteamDB concurrent charts and tacking on the generic dunk or claiming it rules that we can all see a big game fail. Yes, all of the normal people, all of the consumers of video games are looking at a terrible video game with a terrible baseline assumption and awful design fail. And we are happy about it, because we don't like bad video games or bad products taking up 8 years of development time. The jubilation of Concord's low turnout, it apparently cracked the top 50 best sales on the PS Store over the weekend. I would like to see those numbers, derives to some degree from an I told you so sense of justice. The idea that out of touch, creatively bankrupt executives are cynically chasing trends. This is your first indication that PC Gamer has no idea whatsoever what caused Concord to fail. I guarantee you, there is no suit-wearing executive responsible for this. There is no higher up at Sony responsible for the failure of Concord. There was no boardroom know-it-all that went, "I know how to sell a video game, the most actively heinously repulsive characters in living memory." That did not happen, but somebody sure was out of touch, and, well, Mr. Writer, I think it's probably you. And the rest of us would have had the common sense to avoid releasing a Concord, Marvel's Adventure, Suicide Squad, a Gotham Knights, or the perplexing Gollum game. But it's not actually that easy to know why one game succeeds and another doesn't. Son, I've got news for you, but see, this is one of those weird things, you see. There are some people in this current year of ours that have the ability to see the future. We possess remarkable foresight, oracle-like powers to predict the rise and fall of an entertainment entity. I, for example, can look at a roster like this, and I can predict, before we see so much as a frame of gameplay, that this is not going to work out very well. Now, some would say that this has something to do with seeing patterns or trends in gaming overall, but others would claim that we simply do not possess the evidence to make an educated decision. It's simply too hard to figure out why a game like the Suicide Squad flops. You know, the executing Batman thing. Difficult indeed. The devs at Firewalk Studios, many of whom are ex-Bungie, well, at least Bungie has done something right in recent memory, have made a game in the genre they have experience in and released it without the free-to-play monetization we so often complain about, which isn't a cynical or underhanded thing to do, but concurrency numbers have in some situations acquired a moral quality. Yes, because it is an indicator of quality, therefore it has pretty damn automatic inherent worth. If you release an unpopular game, everyone is suddenly morally justified to shame and embarrass you, whether it's because all big budget games are bad, or live service games are bad, or you did too much woke, pick one. Why can it not be all three? Although in this case, yeah, it's the latter one. My guess at the real reason for all this grave dancing is that it feels like a victory over FOMO. What? In the new 40s games suck and no one is playing it. I can safely go back to whatever I was playing before without worrying that anyone's having fun without me. What? Beating up on an unpopular game is also a way of passively farm a satisfying sense of vindication. If I never paid attention to a game that fails at launch, it affirms the correctness of my judgment and the immaculacy of my taste without any effort on my part. Sir, I think you've misunderstood a few of the points here. The satisfaction that people are deriving from this isn't that, oh, I never cared for this and now that anyone else. It's that all of us predicted it would fail. This was pretty much a game that everyone, as demonstrated by the low player count, knew was going to fail. And the fact that we told them, correctly identified the reason why, and then saw the developers go, oh, those silly video gamers, they just don't understand. They are, what was it that developer on Twitter said, uneducated plebs? Which is rather beautiful in and of itself. When a struggling game has a high enough profile, as Concord does, the reasonable impulse to crack a joke about its Steam concurrent gives way to that sort of thinking, which then gives way to a shit-talking free-for-all that turns the developers into cartoonish corporate stooges and totally warps the reality of the game. Nobody is blaming the corporation for this. Literally nobody, except, well, I guess PC Gamer. Battlefield 2042, that's a deviation, became one of those dog piles back when it launched. Where is he going with this one? Make the point, its detractors started copying and pasting a giant list of features from previous Battlefield games that DICE was accused of removing. Accused? Including features I don't remember anyone liking in the first place. I never saw anyone use Battlefield 1's fortification building system, but it became a must-have feature as soon as it could be used as a bludgeon. Yes, removing features from further games is a bad thing. It means that the game is regressing, and seeing as Battlefield 2042 also introduced mechanics that nobody asked for, like the goddamn hero shooter class hero characters, for example, which turned every match into an enormous clusterfuck with 500 clones for fighting one another. Yeah. It seems reasonable to bring up the things that people actually did, at least in theory, like a fortification system, and use it as a cudgel against the company that is giving them what they don't want. And besides, Battlefield 2042 was quite popular up until it released, and it turned out to be dog shit, as it looked at the beginning from the trailers to be a return to form. That was a deceit, of course. 2042 was not making a list of every discrete feature that's ever been in a Battlefield game and then putting them all into one game, but through the warped lens of Reddit and other platforms, that's what the conversation became. Concord's Steam launch numbers are astonishingly low for a blockbuster competitive game, but the piranha-like gnashing of social media hasn't delivered any real insight into why it's fared so poorly. I wasn't kidding when I said that PC Gamer actually does not understand why Concord was a flop. This is probably why they're so baffled by it. Why they're like, well, why did the video game fail? I don't understand. What did everybody else see that I was apparently blind to? Some onlookers have said with conviction that Concord's $40 price tag was obviously one of the problems. No, I believe you're quoting another PC Gamer article when you say that. Forgetting that Helldivers 2, the biggest breakout game of the year and a game also published by Sony, is $40. I feel as if you set up a straw man literally of your own website's creation only to debunk it and then go like, haha, Behold, facts and logics. In a saturated market where 39 games release on Steam each day on average, I'm not convinced the price was a problem. Concord couldn't even get a large audience to give it a shot during the free beta. I don't have the one true answer. Well, I do. I actually possess the one true answer. I can give you the solution. In fact, I already have. This is the reason. I made a video about it. Concord is so vile that it managed to defy the Rule 34. Its character roster is so actively preposterously repulsive that no man, woman, or creature in living memory would be capable of looking upon this and feeling any sense of attraction, mercy, empathy, pity, or any real emotion beyond, well, if you're very lucky, bland nonchalantness, uninterestedness, or in the worst case scenario, as with the majority of people, active hostility. I mean, this is an aggressively awful looking lineup. Like, even one of the less offensive ones, helmet chick here. You have the ugliest imaginable shade of beigeish, vomit-esque green, the kind of colour that you would expect coming out of your mouth after a particularly violent evening on the town, with little, bits of carrots in them stucking around, and then a giant red visor as if to evoke the image of a pimple about to burst, with the colour of its pus apparently being the rest of the colour pattern. This is not just ugly. This is repulsive. Actually, the literal meaning of the word, repulsive. Then you have a 70-year-old woman with 70-year-old woman eye makeup. You have a fish with a bob cut, which is, I'm ashamed to say it, probably one of the more attractive characters in this. You have another old woman with massive purple lipstick and a Powerpuff hairstyle. A woman with a plastic bucket on her head, and it just goes on. This is how everyone knew this was going to be a failure. It's not difficult, and here's the thing. Anyone with eyes to see can see this. Anyone with the ability to judge aesthetics would be able to notice this. So clearly, there is a very specific form of blinders on our little journalist here. Tyler Wilde. I am presuming that Tyler Wilde is a penis-possessing person. Actually, no, that's not inclusive enough. A penis-possessing entity, or entities in the case of they-thems, a Zer, but surely, even with the removal of your testicles, this should still be a rather obvious indicator that this is not going to be a very financially successful video game. But my take for now is that Concord isn't selling a fantasy or a narrative that's getting for FPS players excited to play it in the first place. I don't know. Personally, I find the narrative of shooting this crowd of people in the face rather appealing, but not quite enough. Before they've even decided whether they like its guns, characters, and modes. The answer is staring you in the face, but again, your blinkers appear to be set to extreme levels. Before they even, and one reason I can imagine it's struggling in that respect is that it doesn't have an easily disseminated identity rooted in competitive shooter pedigree, as competitors do. Valorant is a noir of Counter-Strike. It's easy to tell your Discord friends it's CSGO by the League of Legends studio. Apex Legends came from Infinity Ward lineage. Deadlock is Dota plus TF2. Well, the reason why Deadlock is doing well, despite having some of the same problems as Concord, mind you, is because it's Valve. Valve is one of the few companies remaining on Earth within the video game and entertainment sphere in general that actually still has good faith intact. They could release something that looked objectively awful and people would still give it a chance because it's Valve. It's probably not as bad as it looks. Concord comes from ex-Bungie devs, but I don't get the impression that Destiny 2 fans perceive it as an offering with any deep spiritual connection to their beloved space fashion game, of which the PvP Crucible is a small part. Aye, my dude. Dramatic post-launch turnaround. do happen, excuse me, and maybe updates and sales can give Concord some momentum. I don't think so, no. Or maybe there just isn't enough oxygen available to a game with Concord's particular characteristics in late August 2024. I would think that if anything, there's too much oxygen in the air, and then, this being the oxygen, and the spark being the internet, a little flare-up there in the 100% oxygen atmosphere, resulting in the ensuing, inflammation. A period that included one of the fastest-selling games ever on Steam. Black Myth Wukong. A World of Warcraft expansion and great new games like Tactical Breach Wizards, and now Valve's own hero-based MOBA shooter hybrid. DICE went on years-long Battle 2042 overhaul campaign. After its soft launch, it possibly Firewalker will stick with it. God, I hope so. I pray they do. I want, again, this hole to keep leaking for a very long time. I want Sony to simply just be dragged underneath the waves by the weight of Concord. That would be the happiest conceivable ending to this story. Also, I love the fact that they don't mention the name of Wukong. PC Gamer, are you sad that your ability to cancel things is no longer in existence? Because I think that at the end of the day is the real thing here. See, Tyler Wilde here can pretend for all the world that he just doesn't understand. He just can't fathom why a game that looks just so darned appealing could possibly fail enormously. He doesn't get why people are relishing this failure. He just can't put two and two together. It's too difficult for him. Well, I think he probably has a certain inkling. I'd like to believe that he has the eyes with which to see the reality before him, but it also kind of hurts a little bit, doesn't it? Because PC Gamer and IGN were amongst the leading forces trying to cancel Black Myth Wukong, as cancel culture was the keenest edge of the progressive SJW movement. The wokists' finest weapon was the ability to isolate people and items they didn't like from the larger audience, cutting them off from people in general and guaranteeing their failure, whether it be through social media means or financial means, etc. This was how they gained control over culture as a whole, damn near there, for half a decade. However, it's no longer working. Black Myth Wukong was attached and beset at every side, and it became the biggest hit ever, in large parts because of the attacks launched against it, because the ability to get something to be good now, the ability to launch a game, to launch a career, to launch a piece of entertainment no longer resides with PC Gamer. They no longer even possess the ability to cancel one, but both of these lie with the audience, which are largely represented via their avatars in the YouTube commentary sphere. Concord was pegged by literally everyone to be a guaranteed, absolute, unavoidable failure. By the audience, by the commentators, by everyone but the media, who wished to prove that they still possess the gravitas and the influence to make or break a product. This is going to probably be yet another landmark thing that Concord will be remembered for, not only for the sizable hole it made in Sony's earnings, and the fact that it hammered home the point that ugly characters really do not sell under any circumstance, but it also provided the final point of proof that the legacy media no longer has any power left. They cannot save your game. If you kowtow to their demands, you will only bury yourself further. They can't cancel you. They can't make you a success. Only the audience can do that. Only the consumer, you know, that group of people that has been so thoroughly ignored and lambasted for the last 10 years, are actually in a position to see your game sell. We are returning at long bloody last to the beautiful era of companies needing to sell a product to an existing audience rather than one they think might appear at some point in the future, and relying on legacy media to make up the difference, giving out the most pitiful crumbs to their supposed fans, whilst holding out for their replacements, which are, I'm told, just over the horizon there. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen this time either, and I'm very, very glad it never did. Until next time, thank you all very much for watching, and long live Concord! May it continue to thrive for a good decade, at Sony's expense. Have a good day.